I figured I would make a studio vlog this week because I'm actually making some changes and adding some things to my studio. The first one, as I'm sure you can probably tell, is this new stool, which I figured I would take you along for the process of switching this up. I have actually already painted the base. That wheel base was black and now white, of course. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this, but my old stool, which is like this one, which is like an ergonomic one, which is like a balancy type one from IKEA. This blue teal color, I actually painted. I don't know if you'll be able to tell. You can kind of see the edge here. It was like bright green before, like green screen green, and I painted that top to match my office chair perfectly. Like, it looks like they were made from the exact same fabric, and I think I'm gonna do the same thing with this. Now, the story about this stool, I was doing a whole bunch of research because I really wanted a stool that had wheels on it, because that one has been bothering my tailbone a bit. It never really used to, but as I've gotten older, because I'm a grandma now, it has definitely bothered me more. And so I was looking at a new stool for a while, and this one kind of ticked all the boxes. It had really great reviews. It was from Amazon. The only thing, of course, I did not like was the color, and that's never been a problem before. Now, I'm not sure how much paint is going to like the top here. That was just some fabric medium and some acrylic craft paint, which is what I normally do for any fabric stuff. Just a custom mix to make it the right color. This I'm gonna try, but I'm not sure how that will work out. But yeah, main reason I got this stool is because I've been hoping to kind of use this desk more. Now, originally when this was in my old studio setup slash bedroom, that was basically my only space to draw, and since then I've kind of just been chilling out on this desk and facing the wall, which, you know, that's not a bad view to see all the time, but I kind of miss having another area and also the chance to look out a window. The other thing is that this desk is actually a drafting table. I'm not sure if I've ever used it that way, but I really want to start, because obviously the benefit of having artwork tilted up to face you, it means you are less likely to have any warping issues. Like, you know how when you draw something like this, there's a chance that you are essentially creating an optical illusion, because this way it looks right, but when you actually see it from straight on, it doesn't. So I definitely wanted a comfier stool to kind of work more at this desk. And when the second thing that I'm going to put together comes on Friday, you'll see the other part of that, because obviously when you're using it as a drafting table, you don't necessarily have a space to put too much of anything down, especially because my little tray thing right there is full of other things, and I didn't really want to mess with that. But anyway, I am, after all that ramble, I am going to see how much paint likes this fabric. Might do a bit of a test. I do remember that that one, like this one, is really old. I did that probably 5 years ago, maybe more. That one I remember taking a stupid amount of paint to get it that color, but it has lasted. It's like perfect, pristine. Honestly, it probably has lasted better because of the paint and fabric medium on it. So hopefully this one will work out as well. I did briefly consider painting that a different color and or galaxying it, but for right now we're doing the teal special. That might be the largest test swatch area going. I just kind of kept on going with the paint that was on my brush, and yeah, it is quite large. So I'm gonna let that dry and see how that works out. And while I'm doing that, I actually have some new paint colors that I figured I would show you. So Curry's, which is a Canadian art supply store, was having a ultra fine sale, which is of course the various professional pigments, watercolors, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that they somewhat recently started carrying, and that I was the most interested in, was Daniel Smith paints. They were 20% off, and Daniel Smith watercolors do not go on sale very often, so I figured I would pick a few up. And actually, this will be finishing off my custom palette. So over here, I have my custom watercolor palette swatch sheet. The palette itself is over there right now. But this is my swatch sheet, and as you can see, I have 4 empty spaces here. Now I do have 5 colors I'm going to be getting rid of slash moving that indigo somewhere else. These 2 are kind of somewhat temporarily in there. They are the sepia and indigo that I flipped out down here in the normal. Basically, this is the Winsor Newton Cotman set. I actually did a video when I built this, but if you haven't seen that video, if you're not familiar with my custom watercolor palette, I basically flipped out the original Winsor Newton Cotman sepia and indigo with the professional colors in my normal set, but I still enjoy using the Cotman colors because they are slightly less pigmented, which sometimes that is a great thing, to not have that much pigment to possibly darken up the drawing too much right away. And so that's why I have them up here. Now, saying that, I don't know if I've ever used the indigo since then. It was mainly the sepia that I was using the Cotman color. So I'm going to get rid of slash move. I think I might just block half of this swatch out. I might not. I'm gonna definitely flip this, either have it or completely get rid of the indigo in this palette if the pans don't fit. That's the other thing I'm not sure of, is if I might actually be able to get another pan in there. But yeah. Basically, there are 4 open slots, and these are the new paint colors. Now, one of the things, as I'm sure you can tell, these are my Daniel Smith colors here. Basically, watercolor palette, it is Winsor Newton Professional at the top, obviously the 2 odd Cotman colors out, and then you have all of the Daniel Smith colors, which I'm sure you can tell are somewhat in a random color order. Basically, these 2 rows I got pretty much close together, if not at the same time, and so they are in color order, and then these ones were the additions, and so I'm going to continue that trend and put these new 5 ones in color order, which honestly isn't going to bother me that much because these are obviously the ones that I enjoy using somewhat the most. They were the first ones that I went after, the ones that I thought I was going to use the most, and therefore the ones that I am most likely to use the most. But one thing, as I'm sure you can tell with this, is I am severely lacking in red and yellow shades, and so that is what I ended up going after. I have the dot sheets, and so what I've ended up doing every time I've gone after new Daniel Smith colors, I'm sorry for the zooming and I just don't feel like trying to get those down. What I've basically ended up doing, because I have the dot sheets, which you can buy those. I think they're really great because I basically just turned mine into swatch sheets. You can obviously use, like, the dots are actually a decent amount of watercolor, so you could definitely use those in paintings on their own anyway if you didn't need that much paint. But anyway, basically what I really like about that is I can see exactly what the paint color is. So every time I want to go after new Daniel Smith watercolors, I look at that sheet, I can see exactly what the colors are and what ones I feel I might be missing in my collection or that I realize I really need because I'm using a lot, and whether it's really annoying to mix or it's just impossible to mix. I go to that sheet and make a note of what color that is, and then I go after it. And so this time the colors that I went after, I have cadmium yellow medium hue in a big bottle. Now I'll explain why this one's smaller in a minute. This one is Pyrrole Scarlet. That's of course zoomed in now. And then in this little box here, probably should have opened this before I started filming, I have Quinacridone Rose, which is of course not focusing on any of the names, and then Hansa Yellow Deep, and also I picked up the Falto Blue in the green shade. I have the blue shade and the green shade I've always thought about, and so I figured with the 20% off, why not just get it? It is the 5th shade to finish off the different ones. But yeah, the Pyrrole Scarlet is actually smaller because I went to try and get this in the 15, these are 15 millimeters, right? Yeah. The 15 milliliter tube at Curry's, and they didn't have open stock of Pyrrole Scarlet at the one that I was at, and I just kind of figured they probably wouldn't at the other, and I don't like... Most watercolor tubes are this size, and the Daniel Smith ones are kind of ginormous, and I always have like a crazy amount left, and you know, if you use watercolor, you know that you don't use very much, and so I figured for this one, this was kind of like the last one that I wasn't too sure about getting. I figured a small tube would be perfectly fine for that because that's what I could order. So yeah, I am going to pan these, get them all labeled, and then get them in the palette. And there are the pans. As you probably saw in the video, the wonderful Pyro Scarlet did give me a bit of trouble kind of getting all over me, which is kind of funny and very typical. I have this thing for some reason that the only paint that I get on myself and like spill or whatever is red, so it looks like a murder scene, and should have known as soon as I added red to this that that's what was going to happen. But yeah, so that's what they look like. Really cool. Really love it when you can actually, like, the watercolor looks vibrant, as you probably know if you use watercolor, because it is a transparent color. Half of the colors end up looking black. This, I'm not sure if you will be able to tell on camera, this does have like a tint of blue, but honestly most watercolors kind of end up looking about that level of darkness. So when they are nice and bright like that, it is nice to see. But as I was saying before, like, these are obviously pretty full depending on how much binding agent is in them and that it, like, contracts. I might have to fill them up a bit. But yeah, like, these, I maybe used a quarter of these tubes, not even. And so, like I mentioned before, this tiny little Pyro Scarlet was more than enough. Like, that is how much I got out of that to fill that pan. So yeah, I very much doubt, like, if I end up using a full tube of a Daniel Smith paint, it will be like a miracle and a first. Honestly, like, I don't even, like, maybe the Indan Throne Blue, just because it's like my favorite all-time watercolor, I could see ending up possibly needing a new tube of that at some point, but it's honestly probably going to be years, and every other color I very much doubt I will be needing unless I'm doing some like a giant mural or something. Yeah, gonna let those dry. Probably am not gonna put them in my palette. I don't normally until they are drying, just because I have a tendency to stick my fingers in and just create a catastrophe, so it's really not worth it. All of the rambling that I did about those paint palettes and everything, it took enough time that this is actually dry, and yeah, I think this is actually going to work. As you can see, like, honestly, when I looked up, like, this is basically vinyl. It's like very high quality vinyl. It's very soft. When you look up how to paint vinyl, everyone uses spray paints like lunatics, and that just seemed like the worst idea because spray paint is not that flexible as opposed to fabric paint. Of course, fabric medium essentially turns any type of paint to become flexible. So as you can see, like, when I add more, if it's gonna crack, you're gonna see it more, but as of right now, it likes, like, this is a very squishy stool, very comfortable. It isn't cracking or anything, it's definitely moving with it, so very happy with that. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and paint this entire thing. At least a first coat, because as you can see, it's going to need many a coat. It is the next day, of course, and here is the finished stool. This actually was a pretty easy process. It does have a decent amount of layers on it. I think there might be 6 layers of paint, 5 or 6. But yeah, it's like really, really uniform in color. It was pretty uniform at like layer 5 or whatever, and I just added one more just to completely make sure it was entirely smooth. But yeah, that looks really cool and matches my chair perfectly. I will stand up and show you. But if you're wondering, I know there's a lot of paint here, but the fabric medium that I use all the time is the Martha Stewart one. This is just what I started with, and I've never tried another one, and I'm happy with this one, so I just keep on buying that one. The layer that you saw me paint was this paint, which I knew wasn't going to be the perfect color, but it was basically a new bottle, and so I had a lot of it. And what I originally used, I didn't think I was going to have enough, so for a base color, this worked. This is deep turquoise. It's just the Craft Smart. This one's one of the premium ones. Now, for what I thought I used, I know for the original stool over there, I used the Martha Stewart paints. Now, I'm not sure if any of these are actually what I used. I might have actually blown through like an entire tube of what I originally used, but originally I thought I did use like a mixture of these two colors, and when I did that, the color was kind of off. It was a little too blue and not really turquoise enough, and so the color that you can actually see on top is mainly this Craft Smart paint, which this one normally I wouldn't want to use because it's one of the normal ones and it's not necessarily the most opaque, but for the final layers it worked great. So this one is TLC, and then I mixed a bit of the original deep turquoise color with, and then a touch of this Martha Stewart paint that I don't even know if you can get anymore in Deep Sea. So a very small bit of it. It's mainly these two colors, and I just added a bit of this to kind of gray it down, because if you look at my actual chair, which I was sitting in, I'm not sure how well it's going to show on camera. It's kind of a little less saturated than the other paints, but yeah, when you see it like with the stool, obviously it's like meshy compared to the stool, but yeah, it looks really like they both look like they belong together, which is great. The other thing, of course, that I was working on was the watercolor pans, which right now they are still pretty gummy, but they have a decent enough skin on the top that they're not like super messy, so I'm gonna go ahead and put those in my palette. So as you could probably tell from the swatches, I actually managed to fit all 5 new pans in the row without having to remove either the indigo or the sepia, so that's great. And yeah, my custom palette is looking real great now that it's completely full, and here's of course the finished swatch sheet. So this just came in the mail, and this is the other part of the new studio furniture, storage, whatever that I was talking about earlier. And as you can tell, it is a cart. Little background to this, because it is a different cart compared to what most artists end up with. Originally, mainly the thing is that when I decided that I really wanted to use this in like a drafting table type thing, as you can see, it has a million things on it right now. And of course the problem with using it as a drafting table is that you don't have any desk space to put stuff flat, because it is elevated in some fashion. So I was looking originally at some sort of craft cart to mainly, of course, using this as a drafting table so that I would have a spot to put the materials or whatever that I was working on. The thing is that the usual craft carts that like normal people, like everyone has, like the IKEA ones, the Michaels ones, all of the kind of a standard style, is that they were too tall to fit under this desk, which I kind of had scoped out the possibility of being able, like basically I wanted to be able to fit the cart under whatever table, and this table is pretty low. It had to clear 27¼ inches, and all of those are like 29 inches. So I checked like all of those out, and then I just decided to start scoping out Amazon to see if I could even find like some knockoff one that was just like a couple inches shorter. I considered changing the casters and whatever, and this one came up, and this is actually the same brand. Like this cart actually matches this desk, and I thought it was perfect, so I got it in the silver color to completely match my desk. And yeah, I also love this one even more because, as you can see from the photo, it has a glass top, and I was going to basically be using it as a table, and so the top is already there, and so yeah, this one is going to work absolutely perfectly for me, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and build this. Not on camera, because if you've learned anything from me, you know that I have a great habit of putting my body between what the camera should be seeing and the camera itself. So I'm just gonna go ahead and build this and then show you the finished result. And here is the finished cart. As you can see, I've already put some of my fine tip paints and a palette that was just clogging up my desk on there right now. But yeah, super happy with that, and I'll definitely be reorganizing it and figuring out exactly what I might want to keep in there permanently, since that is also a source of some storage if I want it to be, other than just generally wanting to use this top as a surface to put things on. I did actually decide to not attach, there was like a bar that you could like hang up chamois and like paper towels and stuff on, and then the like poles that stuck out, I decided to not attach those to keep the overall profile of the cart more slim and contained. As you can see, like everything is the same width and nothing is sticking out and possibly like gonna get caught on stuff when I want to slide the thing under and things. But yeah, it's super awesome, super happy with that, and as you can see, it slides under my desk absolutely perfectly, and I still have tons of room to sit under there and put my garbage can there and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be where I end this week's studio vlog. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.